On May 14th, starting at midnight, the circadian flycatchers are going to be birding for 24 hours straight, covering the entire state of New Jersey. It's safe to say this is going to be the most intense World Series of birding yet. Alright, that was kind of a mess. I just filmed like pretty much the entire video, and then I realized that it wasn't recording and the battery had died. So anyway, we're good. We're just gonna refilm some of it. This video is long overdue, but right now I'm gonna talk to you guys about how we did in the World Series of birding. So to start off, I'm gonna kind of talk about what the World Series of birding is, for those of you that didn't watch my previous videos, talk about how this whole World Series of birding team kind of like came to be, and kind of about our team name and our logo and everything like that. Anyway, what the World Series of birding is a competition and a fundraiser put together by New Jersey Audubon. The goal is to try to find as many bird species as possible within 24 hours. And then as far as the fundraising aspect, you can raise money for New Jersey Audubon or kind of whatever other conservation cause that you choose. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of different categories. This year, I was competing in the full state youth category. We kind of wound up competing against the adults in a way, even though technically it wasn't like that. It was just kind of like, that's kind of how it was kind of considered a little bit. Anyway, that's what the World Series of birding is. And then I was actually on a team with Youth Maryland Ornithological Society this past year. I'm from New Jersey, but the way that this kind of happened was actually really cool. So one of the members from YMOS, Scotty, had friended me on Facebook, and I got to DMing with him, and he was talking about how he liked some of my videos and had mentioned seeing some of my videos from past World Series of birding. He had told me to come on one of their trips, which actually happened to be to Cape May in New Jersey. So I went on that trip, and I also knew a bunch of other people from Maryland, from social media that I'd been in touch with for years, and it was cool to finally meet all of them. And we got to talking about World Series of birding, and I had mentioned how I'd never done full state, but I'd love to do that. And they were talking about putting together this whole high school full state World Series of birding team, and it all just kind of went from there. So that's how I wound up on a Maryland team. It was really a great team. It was me and then my friends Jonathan, Scotty, Josie, and Aaron. Our team name was the Circadian Flycatchers, and that's kind of based off of the Acadian flycatcher and circadian rhythm. So when you're doing World Series of birding, especially full state, when you're scouting and you're pulling these crazy hours to do this night scouting, then for the actual World Series of birding, which is a 24-hour event which goes from midnight to midnight, it just, your circadian rhythm gets all messed up. So that's where our team name came from. It was actually Aaron who came up with our team name. So that was really cool. And then for our logo this year, we wound up having jackets made. So when we were all out birding, we all had our team jackets on. I was the one who wound up making the whole logo, but a lot of the members from the team kind of had all different ideas for the logo that I incorporated into making it. So the photo for the logo is actually a picture that Jonathan took. I just was able to make an outline of it. Of course, the name Circadian Flycatchers, that's what Aaron came up with. And then as far as the gold lettering that's on the jacket that says YMOS Circadian Flycatchers, Josie was the one who came up with the idea to make it gold, which added a really cool flair to it. And then the jackets being black, that was Jonathan's idea. So we all kind of had different ideas for the logo, so that was really cool. Now to talk about the actual event and how it went. I'm going to try to not make this too long and boring because it was a 24-hour event. A lot happened. Kind of keep it on the interesting parts of what happened that day. So to start off, we woke up at the motel. We left probably around like 10 o'clock. We wanted to get to our first spot early so that we could actually walk out there, because it was kind of a haul from the car. We didn't want to have to run it in and run it out because, as I mentioned in scouting, any sort of on foot birding that we were doing was running, like full force, not like just a jog, like full on sprinting to every spot. As we got out there, we could tell that the conditions were not going to be good for nocturnal flight calls, NFCs, but we were still hopeful that we were going to be able to get some NFCs. Jonathan and Scotty had on their phone midnight on an alarm so that as soon as it turned to midnight, we were ready to start counting birds. And right when the clock struck midnight, we were able to get least bittern, marsh wren, swamp sparrow, and then shortly after that, woodcock. And one of our first big surprises of the day was black-billed cuckoo, which was an NFC that we were able to hear. And then from that, we just started running, and we were able to get great horned owl, barred owl, another good NFC, this time white-crowned sparrow, which was one that we were really gonna kind of struggle with getting if we didn't get it as an NFC. So that was really great to knock that one out of the way right then and there. We hung around this spot for a while, and then after we hung around there, it was time to head back to the car. So we full-on sprinted back to the car, and we're off to our next night birding spot. So at this next spot, I don't remember quite everything we got there, but I know we got a lot of good stuff, and we hung around this spot for a while. We were able to get common gallinule, common nighthawk, I think more woodcocks, a bunch of cool stuff like that. We were able to see a bunch of other World Series of birding teams out there that were also doing full states. So we were able to see kind of a whole bunch of rival teams out there. So that was kind of cool. And then after this spot, we hit some random spots. We were able to pick up a Sora, and then we wound up hitting grassland spots. So stuff for grasshopper sparrow, and some of our kind of basic, black-capped chickadee, just all different stuff that we were getting kind of along these grassland areas and in these little wooded areas along the grasslands and fields and stuff. At one of the spots, we were able to find that snow goose that was still hanging around. After we did all of that, then it was time to head over to the spot that I had talked about in my last video for ruffed grouse. So this spot was one of our longest runs of the day, where we just had to run in and run out for ruffed grouse. So this, as I talked about in my last video, by the time you're done with this run for the ruffed grouse spot, you just you feel your heart beating so much that when you first hear the ruffed grouse drumming, at least for me, and I know for Josie too, you just think it's it's such a deep sound that the ruffed grouse make, that they drum. It's actually with their wings, that you can almost feel it. And from the run, you almost think it's your heart at first, just pounding. But it was, of course, the ruffed grouse. And as soon as we heard that ruffed grouse, we were flooring it back to the car. And on the way back to the car, we picked up hermit thrush, yellow-bellied sapsucker, worm-eating warbler, cerulean warbler, some of that kind of stuff. After this was time for just some driving down the road. So Jonathan's dad was our driver. He did a great job, by the way. He was just driving down these roads, and then we were all hanging out the windows and the sides of the van. I was hanging out the sunroof, and we were just driving down these roads trying to get as many birds as we could hear. So we were able to get hooded warblers, we saw ravens flying over, broad-winged hawk nests that Scotty and Jonathan had worked hard to track down, and a whole bunch of other stuff. We were able to get some different breeders and migrants and all different stuff along these roads. This was really fun, especially after that huge run for the ruffed grouse, to just be able to just kind of hang out the windows and just be picking stuff up by driving and listening. I want to mention this because this was actually really cool. So there was this spot that Jonathan had heard that there were apparently golden crown kinglets breeding at, which golden crown kinglet there's a few spots here and there in northern New Jersey where they breed, but for the most part they breed further north in spots like New York and those kinds of areas. And they had been scouting this spot a lot during the week, and they never got a golden crown kinglet here. But we decided to hit that spot anyway on the big day because there was also some blue-head vireos hanging around the spot, which we also needed. So as soon as we turned onto the road, Jonathan's dad pulled over at the spot where was good golden crown kinglet habitat, and we just decided to listen for just a second. And as soon as we all popped out the windows and me out the roof, we heard the really distinctive, really high-pitched rising call of golden crown kinglet. We all heard it at the exact same time, and then we were off. And that was just so cool, just the way it happened. They had been there, hadn't gotten it all week, heard it right then and there. We all got it the exact same time, and then we were off. And we were able to get blue-head vireo, and then next spot, we were off for sharp-chinned hawk. This was another spot where we were running through the woods. and we successfully got the sharp-shinned hawk. Some of us, I think all of us were kind of still in the woods, but Scotty was out of the woods and he started yelling at us to come over there quick. So then we all started barreling through trying to get out of there. I fell down. I had blood dripping down my wrist because I fell in pricker bushes and had all thorns in me. I was able to get out of there. Then I heard Josie fall down, and eventually we were all able to get out of there. And it turned out Scotty had found 2 common mergansers, which was a bird that Jonathan and Scotty had some spots mapped out for, but now we didn't have to go to those spots. So now we had more time, and that was one less spot we had to go to. And then we hit one more spot. I think we were able to get like bobolink and meadowlark. And then from there, it was already time to start heading a little bit further south. This next spot, it's kind of a migrant trap. So it's kind of a spot where you can kind of get different birds that aren't breeders and just see what's kind of around. So we got to this spot. We heard, I don't remember how we heard about it, but somehow we had heard that there was an American bittern at this pond. So we flew out of the car, got the American bittern, got a bufflehead that was also sitting in the pond, and then we were off and we were able to pick up other warblers around this spot. Blackpoll. Aaron was able to find us a Nashville warbler. Maybe we got magnolia, I don't remember everything, but I know we got some good migrants at this spot. But the thing is this spot easily, on a good day, could host like 20 plus warbler species, and we didn't get near that at this spot on this day. The migration the night before was really not all that good, so unfortunately we missed out on some of those warblers, but thankfully there were still some around. So after this spot, then we were off again, and this time to the spot that I had been out scouting, and also that Scotty and Jonathan had been out scouting for the various waterfowl, ruddy duck, and that kind of stuff. We got to this spot, we were able to get some shorebirds right up front. We were running down the path. As luck would have it, there was a ruddy duck sitting right out in the open. I had went there when I was scouting. I got ruddy duck on the first day that I went scouting there, but then Scotty and Jonathan went back, did not get the ruddy duck, and then I went there again, did not get ruddy duck. So the fact that we just had a ruddy duck just sitting out there in the open was another great one for the day. We were also able to get Savannah sparrows, some basic stuff like just various swallows and all kinds of stuff. From there we went and we got monk parakeets. Those flew right over, we got those right away. After driving for a while, finally reached our next spot. As soon as we got there, it started pouring. We all pulled on our rain jackets, got out of the car, started scoping for stuff. Right away we were able to pick out bank swallow, I think snowy egrets, and various like shorebirds and kind of stuff. We picked up Bonaparte's gull, salt marsh sparrow, gull-billed tern, Caspian tern. Josie picked out a peregrine falcon that was flying by, which was a key one that we needed. And as we continued along this area, we ran into one of our rival teams, which was the Princeton team. They were trying to race ahead of us, and then we'd get ahead and they'd get ahead. This spot, it's a loop that you drive around. The speed limit is 15 miles an hour usually. And I'm not gonna say how fast we were all going, but let's just say it was not 15 miles an hour. After we were done at this spot, it was then off to our next spot. Thankfully at this point the rain was starting to ease up a little bit, but we were able to go to this rookery where we were able to pick up white ibis, black-crowned night heron, yellow-crowned night heron, little blue heron, glossy ibis, and a surprise white-faced ibis, which was a pretty rare one. So we were really glad that we were able to pull that out. From there we hit a whole bunch of marshes. I was able to find a tricolored heron, which we had missed at the rookery, so we were glad to get that. At this point we were in Cape May County, and we were just rushing around the whole county trying to get everything. Scotty pulled out some long-tailed ducks. We were able to find Wilson storm petrels. It just happened to be a lot of them coming in ashore. So Wilson storm petrel is usually a pelagic bird that's found pretty far out in the ocean. They can be seen from shore sometimes. However, to have so many being seen from shore was really cool. There was even this whole little inlet where there were Wilson storm petrels just flying in and out of the inlet, which was crazy. I've never seen anything like it because they're just fluttering like right alongside like the jetty and everything. It was so cool. At this very spot, we were also able to pick up brown pelican and purple sandpiper, so that was really good as well. Unfortunately, the sea watching was less than ideal as there was a ton of fog all around Cape May. So this made it very hard for getting stuff like gannet, which was another bird that we dipped on. Cape May, honestly, for me, that part of the day is really just like a whole blur. Just like at that point in the day, you know, you've been up for almost 24 hours at this point. You're just like trying to run around. Thankfully, all of this stuff was pre-scouted out by Aaron and Josie, and they were at this point guiding us around to all the different spots where they had stuff picked out. Went to this one spot where we were really trying to get stuff like summer tanager and yellow-throated warbler and some of those like southern breeders. This late in the day, when it's like 4 o'clock or something like that, like late afternoon, this stuff is really hard because it usually sings in the morning. So we're listening for chip notes, and Josie and Aaron had pins on their phone at each spot that we're stopping at, and then listening and trying to get this stuff. This was more roads that we were driving around. We were able to successfully get summer tanager, yellow-throated warbler, all that stuff, but we're around this spot for a while and we kept missing Carolina chickadee. So that believe it or not, that actually took some time to get. We had to go to a few different pins. Thankfully, we were able to get that. When we're listening for a while not getting chickadee, that's kind of scary. So some other highlight birds that we were able to get down south was Swainson's warbler. They're a bird that is typically found further south. The northernmost part of the range is the southernmost part of Virginia. I was able to pick out a northern harrier. There happened to be a lesser scaup seeing a pond down there that we chased down. That didn't take very long. Jonathan was able to pick out a Nelson sparrow. At this point, it was already starting to get around dusk. We were already starting to wind down. It was time to head over to our spot for black rail. At this spot, we were able to pick up Chuckwill's widow and whippoorwill. And it figures on this night, but it actually took a little bit longer than usual to get the black rail. There was only one singing as opposed to the two, but we were eventually able to hear it calling. That was just such a great one to get. That was a lifer for Scotty. That was the first one Jonathan had gotten in years. And then the only reason it wasn't a lifer for me, Aaron, and Josie was because I'd gotten it last year, and then this year, then Aaron and Josie had been scouting out. But that's a really rare and endangered bird. Definitely New Jersey's most endangered breeding bird. So to say that we got that on the World Series was just so cool. And then right around this time, it was late. It was back to kind of what we were doing earlier in that same day, which at this point it felt like yesterday. It was now like 10 o'clock at night, and it was crazy to think that we had been up for pretty much over 24 hours. We actually went to a spot that the Princeton team had actually given us for barn owl. We unfortunately did not get barn owl, but we just sat there listening for a while. It was late, everyone was tired. At one point, me, Jonathan, and Josie were all just laying in the road. At this point, we kind of already knew what our total was. Jonathan, he was their team captain, and he was keeping the totals together on a checklist. And then in eBird, which is the new way they do it for the World Series of Birding, that was, the whole eBird checklist thing was a little confusing. He hadn't been saying what we were up to. Nobody else wanted to know. I really wanted to know. And then eventually it came out what our total was. So right around, this was a little bit before the black rail actually, we kind of knew that our total was big. We knew it was over 200, which that's like the main thing when you're doing full state World Series. Your goal is to try to get 200 plus species. So we knew that we had already reached that goal and we're in fact over it. So at this point, we were just sitting there. We knew we were somewhere around like 205, and we were just really trying to see what other birds we could get, because even though that was a high total, we didn't know what any of the other teams got, and we knew these other teams were birding so hard, so we really needed everything that we could. We were listening, we were able to get barred owl, green heron, yellow-billed cuckoo, solitary sandpiper, but this was already stuff that we had already gotten at all other spots. And then finally, right at probably over 11:30, we heard a Swainson's thrush NFC. We were able to get that, and that wound up being our last bird of the day. So from there, it was probably close to midnight at this point, almost a full 24 hours of birding. Then we were heading back to the finish line. The finish line closed right around 12, so we were trying to kind of get there because they had some food, and we also just wanted to get to the finish line and and kind of like see what was going on there. All of our parents were already at the finish line, and my mom was there. She was texting me, and I told her what our total was. So she knew what our total was. We submitted our checklist. So there's two ways to see the final scores for the team. The one way is actually at the finish line, which was where my parents were. So they were keeping me updated. And then the other way is online. There was a website for the World Series of Birding where you can see live results as the teams submit their final checklist. As we're heading back, we knew it was over. What we got was what we got, and our number was 207, which was a really incredible number, but still we were super nervous about it. I just kept checking. The only ones that were still awake was me, Jonathan, and his dad, and everybody else kind of drifted off to sleep as we drove to the finish line. You could kind of like feel the tension in the car, that all of us that were awake were super nervous about how we did. And Jonathan kept asking me to check the updates. I kept scrolling through the updates, kept refreshing the page, and one by one, all of the teams had submitted their final checklist except for one, and that being the Princeton team. And as I talked about, that was one of our main competitors. There were other teams as well that were main competitors, like Cornell teams and some other teams that some of my friends were on. As we saw all their checklists come in, we knew that we had beat all those teams. However, that one team was still left. I just keep looking. All of a sudden, my mom calls me. For whatever reason, just going through my mind, I'm like, if she's calling me, it's like because we didn't win. She called me and she just goes, the results are in for the Princeton team, and you guys won. And I just remember screaming, I'm like, oh my God, we won! And everybody that was in the car that had been asleep woke up, and everyone that was awake just started yelling and screaming. And I wish I had a video of that, because it was just crazy, because we were all so nervous. And then just my mom calling and saying that we won. That's a moment that I'll never forget. And just like the excitement from all of us, and all of us yelling and being so excited. Although we were trying hard, all the other teams were trying hard too, you know, and to be able to come in with the highest total was really just incredible. Right around this time, right after my mom had called me, we pulled up to the finish line and we all got out of the car, and all of us were just freaking out. It was just crazy after that whole day. Even though we had been up for over 24 hours at this point, we were all just so wired after hearing that we won, that we needed that time to just kind of sit down and kind of relax after the long day. That is how we wound up doing in the World Series of Birding. After this, we all went back to the spots that we were staying for the night, and we woke up much earlier than I know I would have liked, and I think a lot of us would have liked, for the awards brunch, which the awards was really not all that early. It was probably around like 9 o'clock, but we were just all tired. But we went there, we were able to get some breakfast, we were able to hang out with all the other teams. Everyone went up and accepted all of their awards. And it was just cool to be at the awards, because a lot of us all had friends that were competing on other teams, and we got to hang out with them and hear about how their day was. They started off calling off all the team names. Eventually it was time for us to get up, and Jonathan, being the team captain, got up and did a great little speech. So my mom actually has a video of that, of him giving the speech for our team.
My name is Jonathan Iyer. This is my team. We got Josie, Aaron, Scotty, and this is Emma. Emma's actually from New Jersey. She joined our team this year and has become an honorary member of WSB. Anyway, we're the Circadian Flycatchers. We're sponsored by the Youth Maryland Ornithological Society. And first off, I'd like to thank George Radcliffe. He's our group mentor and leader, and he's been sending teams up to this World Series, I think, for over 20 years, and has had a significant impact on so many young birders, including myself. I'd also like to thank some of the teams up north, Jackson Messick with the One Red to Rule Them All, and some of the YMOS alumni from the Princeton Tiger Strikes for just helping us scout and also sharing some cool birds with us in scouting and stuff. So you may be wondering, like, our secrets to success. So our main ones is teamwork and also scouting. So we all went up like a week in advance. We all got up here, I think, Sunday. Josie and Aaron scouted Cape May County and like around like the southern, I guess you could call, New Jersey. Emma was central, so like around like north of Brigg and then like around New York City, that area. And then Scotty and I were up north. So for us, the average like scouting day started around 1:30 in the morning, and then we went to, depending on the day, like 5 p.m. So that's probably, you know, that's like our main key to success. I mean, we were scouting like crazy hours, getting like pretty much 4 hours of sleep every day, and it definitely disrupted our circadian rhythm. Anyway, some of our highlights throughout the day included, we had black rail, a monk parakeet, which is one that I've always dreamed of getting on the World Series. We finally got that one. Drumming ruffed grouse. There was something really cool that I never expected to see, was like a flock of 10 Wilson storm petrels feeding in the inlet where the Cape May Ferry comes out. We saw American bittern up at Garrett Mountain Reservation up in northern New Jersey. What else? We had a few good NFCs like our cuckoos and stuff. What other highlights? Anything else? The toughest bird of the day had to be Carolina chickadee. I think a lot of the full state teams kind of have an idea about this, but anyway, like when we got down south, like Forest Line, I kind of started thinking about like Carolina chickadee. I got to keep that on my mind, right? Because teams have gone like pretty close to missing it, right? So we keep going south, like these aren't really good chickadee places. Then Aaron and Joe's like, they're everywhere. That's like the most common passerine. I'm like, okay, we'll see how it goes. But anyway, we keep going around, and sure enough, come 6:30, we're like, holy cow, there's no chickadees. We're in Belle Plaine. It's foggy, getting dark, like not much is singing, and we're like, we don't have chickadee yet. This is a problem. And I always think about it because like I've heard so many stories of other teams, like back in the day, like the hardcore full state teams, like they could go all day and like almost miss chickadee. I was like, oh my gosh, like you can't miss chickadee. So we're like, oh man, we need to really start trying for these things. So we did our best screech owl imitations and pished and squeaked and whatever, and didn't get any for a while. And then finally, we heard one call, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's like, I don't think I've ever been so excited to see or hear a Carolina chickadee. I was like, oh my gosh, that was, I mean, honestly, that was probably like the most exciting bird I got all day. Anyway, I'd just like to thank all the parents and stuff that helped us, or that drove us around all week, and also New Jersey Autobahn for hosting this event, and I'm pretty excited to see it back in the normal form again, right, after 2 years. But anyway, that's all I have. Thank you, guys.
So yeah, but that's how it went. As Jonathan was talking about, a special shout out to YMOS, especially to George, for working on putting together all of the World Series teams, making sure it all went really well, and for sponsoring the teams and everything like that. Also a special shout out for YMOS allowing me to be on their team with me being from New Jersey. It was just really awesome. It was a great experience. I'm not gonna lie, it was really intense. It was really fun, but it was also really stressful. Like I said, it's a competition, and it's different than just like going out there and just birding and photographing. There's a whole lot kind of into it. I have to say a huge shout out to all the teams in the youth category and all the other categories. And of course a shout out to the Princeton team, because we were a youth team. They actually wound up winning the entire competition as an adult team, and they did a great job as well. And all the other teams, everyone did an incredible job, and I have to say a huge shout out to everyone. Last thing, I want to say a special shout out to my awesome World Series team, the Circadian Flycatchers. All of you guys were awesome. Scotty, he's the whole reason why I kind of got on this team, for inviting me to that first YMOS trip. Aaron did a great job for coming up with the team name and finding some incredible birds that day. Josie, she was the only other girl on our team, and it was great to have her there as we were falling down in the woods and getting great birds together. So that was really awesome. And then, of course, last but not least, a shout out to our captain, Jonathan, for doing a great job for putting together the entire route, guiding us through the whole day. Because all of us, with the exception of Jonathan, had never done full state World Series before. So he took a team of rookies and brought us to victory. Also, a huge shout out to Jonathan's dad for being an amazing driver, getting us to all the spots for the birds, and being at the different spots to pick us up, like where we would run through the woods and then he'd be at the other side waiting for us. This video was a little delayed, but I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.